The advice to follow your passion has created more confused, unsuccessful people than any other piece of guidance in human history. Passion is not something you find, it's something you develop through commitment, mastery, and impact. Most people are waiting to feel passionate about something before they pursue it. But passion is actually the result of becoming excellent at something that serves others. You don't discover passion sitting in your room thinking about what makes you happy. You develop passion by choosing something meaningful, working at it consistently despite initial discomfort, gaining competence through practice, and experiencing the satisfaction that comes from making a real difference in that area. The people you admire who seem passionate about their work didn't start that way, they became that way by committing first and feeling second, by acting first and emotions following later. Right now, somewhere in the world, there's a man named Robert sitting in his garage, surrounded by 17 different musical instruments. He's got guitars hanging on the walls, keyboards stacked in corners, drums gathering dust, and shelves packed with music theory books he's read cover to cover. This man can play bits and pieces of hundreds of songs. He knows scales, chords, progressions, and techniques that would make most musicians jealous. But here's what will shock you. In 20 years of making music, Robert has never completed a single album. Not one song from start to finish that he was completely satisfied with. His garage has become a graveyard of half-finished melodies, abandoned recordings, and dreams that died in confusion. Every few months, he starts a new project with burning passion, convinced this time will be different. He'll work for weeks, sometimes months, pouring his heart into the music. But then doubt creeps in. Maybe it's not good enough. Maybe he should try a different style. Maybe he needs to learn just one more technique. So he stops, picks up a different instrument, starts over. And the cycle continues. Robert's tragedy is not that he lacks talent. His tragedy is not that he lacks knowledge. His tragedy is not even that he lacks opportunity. Robert's tragedy is that he has never made one thing crystal clear: what kind of musician he wants to be and what message he wants to share with the world. You see, Robert represents millions of people walking this earth right now. They're busy, they're talented, they're educated, they're connected, but they're going nowhere fast because they've never answered the most important question of their existence: what is my purpose? The greatest enemy of your success is not failure. Failure teaches you lessons, builds character, and often redirects you toward your true calling. The greatest enemy of your success is not even opposition from others. Opposition can actually fuel your determination and prove your commitment. No. The greatest enemy of your success is confusion. When your purpose lacks clarity, your potential becomes your prison. Most people live their entire lives like Robert in his garage. They collect skills like souvenirs, accumulate experiences like stamps, and chase opportunities like butterflies. But they never complete anything meaningful because they don't know what they're truly trying to accomplish. They mistake activity for achievement, motion for progress, and busyness for purpose. Walk into any office, any neighborhood, any gathering of people, and you'll find them everywhere, the walking confused. They wake up every morning and go through the motions of living, but they can't tell you why they're here or where they're going. They've got jobs but no mission. They've got schedules but no direction. They've got relationships but no real connection to their authentic selves. These people are like ships without anchors, drifting with every wind of opinion, every tide of trend, every storm of circumstance. One day they want to be entrepreneurs, the next day they want to go back to school. This month they're passionate about fitness, next month they're focused on art. This year they're all about family, next year they're changing career advancement. They're not growing, they're just changing directions. And here's what's really heartbreaking about this condition. Confusion is exhausting. When you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, everything becomes overwhelming. Simple decisions become monumental struggles. Should I take this job or that job? Should I move to this city or stay where I am? Should I invest my time in this relationship or look for someone else? Should I start this business or save my money? When you lack clarity about your core purpose, every choice feels like it could be the wrong choice. The confused person consumes enormous amounts of energy going in circles. They read every self-help book, attend every seminar, listen to every podcast, hoping someone else will tell them what they should do with their lives. They become addicted to inspiration but allergic to implementation because they're never sure if they're implementing the right thing. But confusion doesn't just drain your energy, it steals your confidence. When you're constantly second-guessing yourself, you start believing you're not capable of making good decisions. You begin to doubt your instincts, your abilities, your worth. You look at other people who seem to have it figured out and wonder what's wrong with you. Why does success come so easily to others while you feel stuck in quicksand? Here's what I want you to understand. There is nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You're not defective. You're not behind schedule. You're just unclear. And clarity is not something you're born with. It's something you develop. It's not something that happens to you. It's something you choose to pursue. The most successful people in history were not the most talented, the most educated, or even the most advantaged. They were the most clear. They knew who they were, they knew what they wanted to accomplish, and they knew why it mattered. This clarity became their compass, their fuel, and their filter. It guided their decisions, energized their efforts, and helped them say no to everything that didn't align with their purpose. You were not born to live in the fog of confusion. You were not created to wander aimlessly through life, collecting experiences but creating no legacy. You were not designed to be a spectator in your own existence, watching other people live with passion and purpose while you struggle to find your way. Today, we're going to change all of that. Today, you're going to learn how to make one thing crystal clear. And that one thing will transform everything else in your life. Because when you get clear on your purpose, everything else falls into place. There's a lighthouse keeper I want to tell you about named Henrik. For 30 years, this man never left his post on a remote island off the coast of Norway. While his childhood friends became doctors, lawyers, and business executives in the city, Henrik stayed in his simple lighthouse, tending to his beacon every single day. People thought he was wasting his life. They said he had no ambition, no vision, no future. But Henrik had something more powerful than ambition. He had absolute clarity about his purpose. He knew exactly why he existed, to guide ships safely to shore. Every morning when he woke up, every evening before he slept, every hour of every day, Henrik had zero confusion about what he was supposed to be doing. While others were climbing corporate ladders and chasing promotions, Henrik was saving lives in those 30 years. Henrik's lighthouse guided over 12,000 ships safely to port during violent storms when visibility was near zero, when captains had lost all sense of direction, when crews were panicking and passengers were praying. There was Henrik's light, steady, reliable, unwavering. That simple lighthouse prevented hundreds of shipwrecks and saved thousands of lives. Henrik never became famous. He never made millions of dollars. He never had his picture in magazines or his story on television. But when he finally retired, the Maritime Authority calculated that his clear sense of purpose had protected more lives than all the busy harbor masters in the biggest ports combined. You see, Henrik understood something that most people spend their entire lives trying to figure out. When you make one thing crystal clear, your purpose, everything else in your life begins to align automatically. Henrik didn't waste time wondering if he should become a fisherman or a ship captain or a maritime lawyer. He didn't spend years exploring different career options or seeking his passion. He knew his purpose. And that clarity made every decision simple. This is the power of crystal clear purpose. When you know exactly why you exist, you stop being a victim of circumstances and you start being a master of your destiny. You stop reacting to life and you start creating your life. You stop asking, what should I do? And you start asking, how can I do what I'm called to do even better? People with clear purpose don't get paralyzed by options. because they have a filter. Every opportunity gets measured against their purpose. Does this job align with why I'm here? Does this relationship support my calling? Does this investment move me closer to my destiny? If the answer is yes, they move forward with confidence. If the answer is no, they decline without guilt or regret. But here's what's really powerful about clarity. It attracts the right resources to your life. When Henrik committed fully to his lighthouse, everything he needed began to show up. The government provided better equipment. Other lighthouse keepers shared wisdom and techniques. Ship captains spread word about the reliability of his beacon. His clarity created a magnetic field that drew support, resources, and opportunities directly to him. This is how purpose works. When you stop trying to be everything to everyone and start being exactly who you're supposed to be, the universe begins to conspire in your favor. People want to help focused individuals accomplish their mission. Investors want to fund clear visions. Employers want to hire people who know exactly what they bring to the table. But let me warn you about the consequences of remaining unclear about your purpose. Without clarity, you become a leaf in the wind, blown around by every opinion, every trend, every suggestion. You live other people's dreams instead of your own destiny. You spend your time, energy, and resources on pursuits that don't fulfill you because you haven't taken time to figure out what would. People without clear purpose become professional followers. They follow their parents' expectations, their friends' advice, their society's standards, their culture's definitions of success. They chase money without knowing why they need it. They pursue relationships without understanding what they're really looking for. They change jobs without knowing what kind of work would actually satisfy them. The unclear person is always starting over, always beginning again, always looking for something different because they never clearly defined what they were looking for in the first place. They become collectors of experiences rather than creators of legacy. But when you get crystal clear about your purpose, something miraculous happens. You stop being jealous of other people's success because you're too busy building your own. You stop comparing yourself to others because you understand you're on a completely different mission. You stop seeking approval from everyone because you're confident in the value of your unique contribution. Your purpose becomes your anchor in storms, your compass in confusion, and your fuel when you feel like quitting. It gives you the power to say no to good opportunities so you can say yes to great ones. It gives you the courage to stand alone when necessary and the wisdom to build teams when beneficial. Henrik didn't need a crowd cheering him on because he knew ships were depending on him. He didn't need constant motivation because his purpose motivated him every single day. This is what clarity does. It transforms you from someone who needs external push to someone who has internal drive. Now I need to tell you about a man named David who worked as a bank manager for 15 years. Every morning, he put on his suit, drove to his office, managed accounts, approved loans, and collected his paycheck. He was good at his job, respected by colleagues, and climbing the corporate ladder steadily. But every night, David went home feeling empty, like he was living someone else's life for years. David kept asking himself the wrong question. What should I do next to advance my career? He attended banking seminars, earned additional certifications, networked with industry leaders, all while feeling more and more disconnected from his work. Then one evening, sitting in his car after another meaningless meeting, David asked himself a different question. Who am I really? That question changed everything. David realized he had been trying to fit himself into a career instead of finding a career that fit him. He began to examine his natural gifts, the things that energized him rather than drained him. He remembered how, as a child, he was always the one other kids came to when they were hurt or confused. He was the mediator in family disputes, the friend everyone called during crises, the person who could calm others just by being present. Banking required analytical skills, attention to detail, and risk assessment. David had developed these abilities, but they weren't his natural strengths. His true gift was understanding people, helping them heal, guiding them through emotional storms. He wasn't meant to manage money. He was meant to manage hearts. Within 2 years, David had transitioned from banking to counseling. He went back to school, earned his therapy license, and opened a practice helping families restore broken relationships. For the first time in his adult life, David jumped out of bed excited about his day. His work didn't feel like work anymore. It felt like destiny. You see, David discovered something crucial. Your purpose is not something you create. It's something you uncover. It's already inside you, waiting to be recognized and released. Most people spend their lives trying to become someone else instead of becoming more fully themselves. The moment you stop asking, what should I do, and start asking, who am I, everything shifts. You stop looking outside yourself for answers and start looking within. You stop trying to fit into other people's definitions of success and start creating your own. Your purpose is hidden in 3 places, and you need to examine all 3 honestly. First, look at what breaks your heart. What injustices make you angry? What problems make you want to take action? What suffering moves you to tears? Your purpose is often found in the pain you're called to heal. Second, look at what makes you come alive. When do you lose track of time? What activities energize you instead of exhausting you? What would you do even if you weren't getting paid? Your purpose is connected to your passions, not separate from them. Third, look at what you would regret not doing. If you knew you had only 1 year to live, what would you absolutely have to accomplish? What contribution would you have to make? What legacy would you have to leave? Your purpose is revealed in your regrets. David found all 3 answers pointed in the same direction, helping people heal relationships and find peace. The broken families he encountered in banking broke his heart. Counseling made him come alive like nothing else ever had. And he knew he would regret dying without helping as many people as possible find emotional freedom. When you get honest answers to these 3 questions, your purpose stops being a mystery and starts being a mission. You stop wandering in confusion and start walking with confidence. You stop being a seeker and start being a finder. But knowing your purpose and living your purpose are 2 completely different things. I want to tell you about a carpenter named Samuel who taught me one of the most important lessons about turning clarity into reality. Samuel had been building custom furniture for 40 years. One day I watched him work on an intricate dining table. Before he made a single cut, Samuel spent nearly an hour measuring every piece of wood, checking angles, marking precisely where each joint would connect. His apprentice was getting impatient, eager to start cutting and assembling. "Why don't we just start building?" the young man asked. "We know what we want to make." Samuel looked up from his measurements and said something I'll never forget. "Son, a carpenter measures twice and cuts once. If I cut first and measure later, I'll waste wood, waste time, and waste the customer's money. But if I measure carefully first, every cut will be perfect and the table will last for generations." That's exactly how purpose works in your life. You must get crystal clear once, then execute consistently. Most people do the opposite. They act first and think later. They jump from job to job, relationship to relationship, opportunity to opportunity, hoping they'll stumble into their purpose along the way. But Samuel understood that precision at the beginning prevents problems throughout the process. Once you've measured your purpose, once you've answered those 3 questions about what breaks your heart, what makes you come alive, and what you'd regret not doing, you must stop reevaluating and start executing. Stop questioning your calling every time you face a challenge. Stop doubting your direction every time someone offers you a different path. The clearer your purpose becomes, the easier it is to say no to distractions. When Samuel knew exactly what table he was building, He didn't get tempted to make a chair instead just because someone offered him chairwood at a discount. When you know exactly what you're called to do, you don't get tempted to pursue every opportunity that comes your way just because it looks attractive or profitable. This is where most people fail, not in finding their purpose, but in protecting it. They get clear about their calling, but then they let other people's opinions, other people's emergencies, and other people's priorities pull them away from their mission. They say yes to everything and wonder why they're accomplishing nothing. When your purpose is crystal clear, saying no becomes as natural as breathing. You don't feel guilty about declining opportunities that don't align with your calling. You don't feel obligated to explain yourself to people who don't understand your mission. You protect your clarity like a mother protects her child, fiercely and without apology. But here's what you need to understand. Every purpose faces opposition. The clearer your purpose becomes, the stronger the resistance will be. This is not a sign that you're on the wrong path. It's confirmation that you're on the right one. Opposition means you're threatening the status quo. Resistance means you're about to create something significant. When Samuel built that dining table, the wood resisted every cut, the joints fought every connection, the finish required multiple coats before it looked perfect. But Samuel never interpreted resistance as a reason to quit. He understood it as part of the process of creation. Your purpose will face resistance from your fears, your doubts, your past failures, and your current circumstances. People who are comfortable with your old confused self will resist your new clear self. Opportunities that benefited from your scattered attention will resist your focused energy. Don't let resistance convince you to abandon your purpose. Let it confirm that you're finally moving in the right direction. The gap between knowing your calling and living it is filled with disciplined daily actions, protected by the word no, and powered by the understanding that opposition is not your enemy, it's your evidence that you're creating something worth opposing. Let me tell you about a woman named Catherine who completely transformed not just her own life, but the lives of thousands of people, simply by making one thing crystal clear. Catherine worked as a night security guard at a children's hospital for 12 years, while doctors and nurses received recognition and respect. Catherine walked the dark hallways alone, checking locks and monitoring cameras. Most people saw her job as unimportant, temporary, something to do while waiting for a real career opportunity. But Catherine saw something different. During her quiet midnight rounds, she noticed that many children couldn't sleep. They were afraid, lonely, separated from their families, dealing with pain and uncertainty. The medical staff was focused on treating their bodies. But Catherine realized these young patients needed someone to tend to their spirits. So Catherine began carrying a small flashlight shaped like a star. When she encountered a scared child during her rounds, she would sit by their bedside and use the flashlight to project star patterns on the ceiling. She would tell them stories about brave children who overcame impossible challenges, about heroes who found strength they didn't know they had, about stars that shine brightest in the darkest nights. Word spread quickly through the hospital. Children who had been scheduled for surgery would ask their parents, "Will the Star Lady come see me tonight?" Parents who had been stressed and exhausted would find peace knowing Catherine would be watching over their children when they couldn't be there themselves. Catherine's supervisor noticed that children on her shift slept better, complained less, and recovered faster. The hospital administration asked her to expand her role. Soon, Catherine was training other security guards to provide emotional comfort alongside their safety duties. She developed a program called Nightlight Angels that spread to hospitals across the country. Today, more than 15 years later, Catherine runs a nonprofit organization that has trained over 3,000 hospital workers to combine their professional duties with emotional healing. She has written children's books, speaks at medical conferences, and has been featured in national magazines. But most importantly, she has personally comforted more than 50,000 children during their darkest, most frightening moments. Catherine never went to medical school. She never earned a psychology degree. She never had connections or capital or credentials that opened doors for her. But she had something more powerful than any of those things. She had crystal clear purpose. She knew exactly why she existed, to bring light to children in darkness. That clarity changed everything. When Catherine knew her purpose, she stopped seeing herself as just a security guard and started seeing herself as a healer, a comforter, a bringer of hope. She stopped waiting for someone to give her permission to make a difference and started making a difference with the position she already had. This is what happens when you live with crystal clarity. You don't just change your own life. You impact everyone around you. Clarity is contagious. When people see you living with absolute certainty about your mission, they start questioning their own lack of direction. When they watch you turn ordinary opportunities into extraordinary impact, they realize they've been underestimating their own potential. Catherine's clarity rippled outward like waves in a pond. The children she comforted grew up with memories of kindness that shaped how they treated others. The parents she helped became advocates for compassionate health care in their own communities. The hospital workers she trained carried her methods to other institutions. Her simple decision to get clear about her purpose created a movement that continues expanding today. But here's what I want you to understand about Catherine's transformation. It didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't without cost. When she first started sitting with frightened children, some of her colleagues thought she was overstepping her boundaries. When she began developing her Starlight program, her supervisor questioned whether she was neglecting her security duties. When she proposed training other guards, some administrators worried she was creating liability issues. Catherine faced the same resistance that every person with clear purpose encounters. She could have given up. She could have decided that her calling was too risky, too different, too likely to cause problems. She could have retreated back to the safety of just doing her assigned job and collecting her paycheck. But Catherine understood something that most people never learned. Resistance is not your enemy, it's your evidence. When you start living with crystal clear purpose, you will encounter opposition because you're threatening the way things have always been done. You're suggesting that ordinary people in ordinary positions can create extraordinary impact. You're proving that you don't need perfect conditions or prestigious titles to fulfill your calling. The clearer your purpose becomes, the more some people will resist your transformation. They'll question your motives, criticize your methods, and predict your failure. But don't let their confusion about your purpose create confusion in your own mind. Don't let their lack of clarity contaminate your crystal clear vision. Catherine's legacy teaches us the most important truth about living with purpose. It's not about how long you live. It's about how clearly you live. Catherine could have worked as a security guard for 40 years, retired with a decent pension, and been forgotten within a generation. Instead, she lived with such crystal clarity that her impact will outlast her lifetime. This is your legacy moment. Right now, you have a choice to make. You can continue living in the fog of confusion, drifting from one thing to another, hoping someone else will tell you what to do with your life. You can keep collecting experiences, but creating no legacy, staying busy, but making no real impact, surviving, but never truly thriving. Or you can do what Catherine did. You can stop waiting for perfect conditions and start working with current circumstances. You can stop seeking more information and start implementing what you already know. You can stop asking for more signs and start following the signs you've already received. Your purpose is not hiding from you, you've been hiding from it. You've been making it complicated when it's actually simple. You've been looking for it in distant places when it's right where you are. You've been waiting for it to find you when it's waiting for you to claim it. Make one thing crystal clear today. Not 5 things, not 3 things, one thing. What is the single most important reason you exist on this earth? What is the one contribution only you can make? What is the one problem you're uniquely equipped to solve? What is the one group of people you're specially called to serve? Stop overthinking it. Stop overcomplicating it. Stop looking for more confirmation. The moment you make your purpose crystal clear and commit to living it fully, your entire life will never be the same again. You'll stop being a victim of circumstances and become a creator of destiny. You'll stop wondering what to do with your life and start doing what your life demands. The world is waiting for your clarity. The people you're called to serve are waiting for your courage. Your destiny is waiting for your decision. Make one thing crystal clear and watch everything else fall into place.